We got Prime going on Asante Samuel's podcast to say, look, this NFL draft prep stuff is nonsense. I'm going to give him his full quote here because it's going to tell you a lot about who Deion is and how consistent he is in what he believes. So when he heard that there were these people that were saying that, hey, he wasn't ready for his draft prep and he went through it with a blasé attitude, he said, it did hurt. But the Bible says God uses foolish things to confound the wise. There was some foolish stuff that went on, but that gave them something that they needed.
Picture this. Your son just got drafted to the NFL, but instead of celebrating, you're watching so-called experts tear him apart on national television. They're saying he wasn't prepared, that he walked into meetings with headphones on, that he had a blasé attitude about the biggest moment of his career. Now imagine you're Deion Sanders, Hall of Famer, two-time Super Bowl champion, and you've just heard enough. Primetime didn't just clap back. He absolutely shredded these reports with the kind of passion only a father protecting his legacy can deliver. What he said next left analysts speechless and reminded everyone why you never, ever come for Coach Prime's family. You know what really gets me fired up? When people who've never stepped foot on an NFL field start questioning the preparation of someone who's been grinding since day one. And that's exactly what happened to Shedeur Sanders. But before we dive into how Prime absolutely destroyed these critics, let me paint you the real picture of what went down. See, here's what nobody wants to talk about. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just some random college quarterback hoping to get lucky. This dude was the Jerry Rice Award winner, led Jackson State to 2 SWAC championships, had a 12-1 season, then took Colorado from a 2-win disaster to a 9-win powerhouse. The kid had legitimate credentials that couldn't be questioned. Yet somehow, when draft season rolled around, the narrative shifted faster than a Deion Sanders pick six. The so-called draft experts had Shedeur mocked everywhere. Mel Kiper, the loudest voice in the room, along with Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, and Field Yates. They all had him ranked as one of the top 50 players in the entire country. Many had him inside the top 25. Because of the quarterback position's premium value, everyone believed he was going to be a first-round pick, possibly the second quarterback taken after Cam Ward. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is where you start to see the real story unfold. The New York Giants traded up to select Jackson Dart instead. Then we watched quarterback after quarterback get selected before Shedeur Sanders. Tyler Shaw, who's had 3 major surgeries and played 7 years of college football, went in the second round. Dylan Gabriel went in the 3rd round to Cleveland. Jalen Milroe went in the 3rd round to Seattle. Outside of Quinn Ewers, there were multiple quarterbacks selected before him that honestly didn't have the same resume. Shedeur Sanders eventually got picked 144th overall by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round. 5th round, for a quarterback who had the credentials, the stats, and the performance to warrant much higher consideration. And you know what happened next? The vultures circled. The narrative became toxic real quick. Suddenly, it wasn't just about where he got drafted, it was about why he slid. And the stories that started coming out? Man, they were brutal. Reports surfaced claiming Shedeur wasn't properly prepared for his draft meetings. Critics were saying he went into these crucial meetings with a blasé attitude. Some even suggested he showed up to meetings with headphones on, like he didn't care about the biggest opportunity of his life. Now, if you know anything about the Sanders family, you know that disrespect doesn't fly. And when these reports started gaining traction, when they started making headlines on ESPN and becoming the talk of sports media, Deion Sanders had heard enough. Picture Prime sitting there, watching his son, who he's raised to be a professional since he was small, get dragged through the mud by people who've never coached a down of football, never stepped into an NFL front office, never had to make these kinds of decisions. The man who's won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams, played in both a World Series and a Super Bowl, and changed the entire balance of power in the NFL as a cornerback, was about to remind everyone exactly who they were dealing with. So, Prime went on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, and what he said next was pure poetry mixed with righteous anger. He didn't just defend his son, he absolutely obliterated the entire narrative with surgical precision. Look, this NFL draft prep stuff is nonsense, Prime started, and you could hear the controlled fire in his voice. But then he got deeper, more personal, more real than we've ever heard him when it comes to his children. It did hurt, he admitted, showing that even the great Deion Sanders feels the pain when his family gets attacked. But the Bible says God uses foolish things to confound the wise. There was some foolish stuff that went on, but that gave them something that they needed, like that edge Tom Brady had. It gave them the edge that you had. It gave them the edge that I have. Folks said we weren't going to be nothing, but we had to prove all of that. It gave them that edge that they needed. Both of them. Hold up. Did Prime just compare his son's situation to Tom Brady? The same Tom Brady who was drafted 199th overall in the 6th round? The same Tom Brady who had multiple quarterbacks selected before him and went on to become the greatest quarterback of all time? That's not just a comparison. That's a prophecy. But Prime wasn't done. He was just getting warmed up. Shedeur has been called grown by his father since he was very small. Shedeur does not need anybody else to be telling him what he can't do. He's had it all of his life, mostly because he's pretty damn good as a quarterback, and even more so because he's Deion Sanders' son. See, that right there tells you everything you need to know about how Prime raised his boy. This isn't some sheltered kid who got handed everything. This is someone who's been dealing with the pressure of being Deion Sanders' son his entire life. Someone who's had to prove himself over and over again just because of his last name. And then Prime delivered the knockout punch to all the critics questioning Shedeur's preparation. When you sit up there and you say something like that, and went into the meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who has had 6 different offensive coordinators, who still functioned and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're going to tell me that he was unprepared? You're going to tell me that he had on headphones? Anybody who knows my son understands he's a professional. He's going to go into a meeting with headphones on? Y'all come on now. 6 different offensive coordinators. Think about that for a second. Most quarterbacks struggle when they have to learn one new system. Shedeur adapted to 6 different offensive coordinators and got better each time. That's not luck. That's preparation, intelligence, and adaptability at the highest level. But the headphones comment? That's where you see Prime's frustration really boiling over. The idea that his son, who he's raised to be a professional from day one, would disrespect NFL executives by showing up to meetings with headphones on is so ridiculous that Prime couldn't even hide his disbelief. And here's the thing. The host of this show, RJ Young, who's been covering college football for more than half his life and is a national analyst at Fox Sports, backed up everything Prime was saying. He's had sit-downs with Shedeur, with Travis Hunter, with Prime himself. He knows their work ethic, their preparation, their professionalism. Their consistency in their confidence and their preparation is what allows them to go and act, Young explained. They're not out there saying things loudly. The vibe here is cultural. Cultural. That's the word that explains everything about what the Sanders family has built. It's not just about football. It's about a mindset, a standard, a way of approaching everything in life with excellence. But here's what really gets me about this whole situation. And this is where the story gets even more interesting. The fact that this story about Deion defending his son became the top headline on ESPN's website tells you everything you need to know about the power the Sanders name still carries. Think about the timing. This happened during the NBA Finals, when the Oklahoma City Thunder were making their championship run. This happened during the summer when Caitlin Clark and the WNBA were absolutely booming. This happened when college football was in its quiet period, when most people aren't even thinking about the sport. Yet a story about Deion Sanders defending his son's draft preparation shot to the top of ESPN's headlines. That's not accident. That's influence. That's the kind of magnetic power that only a few athletes in history have possessed. And that brings us to the real point here. Deion Sanders isn't just any coach defending his player. He's not just any father defending his son. He's one of the 5 greatest athletes to ever walk the face of the earth. He's the only man to play in both a World Series and a Super Bowl. He won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different teams. He changed the balance of power in the NFL as a cornerback. He's proven he can dominate in baseball, football, coaching, and broadcasting. So, when someone like that tells you that the criticism of his son is nonsense, you better listen. When he breaks down exactly why the narrative is wrong, you better pay attention. When he invokes Tom Brady's name and talks about the edge that adversity creates, you better believe there's truth in those words. But here's the question that's been eating at me since this whole thing went down. Why did Shedeur really slide to the 5th round? Was it really about his preparation, or was it about something else entirely? Because when you look at the quarterbacks who got selected before him, Tyler Shaw with 3 major surgeries, Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Milroe, none of them had the Same combination of success, leadership, and proven ability to adapt that Shedeur demonstrated. None of them took a program from 2 wins to 9 wins. None of them had to deal with 6 different offensive coordinators and still perform at it. Elite level. Could it be that some NFL executives were intimidated by the Sanders name? Were they worried about dealing with Deion's personality? Were they concerned about the media attention that would come with drafting Prime's son? Or maybe, and this is where it gets really interesting, maybe some front offices made a massive mistake. Maybe they overthought it. Maybe they let outside noise influence their evaluation of a quarterback who has everything it takes to succeed at the next level. Because here's what we know for sure. Shedeur Sanders is going to make the Cleveland Browns' 53-man roster. He's going to get his opportunity to prove that everyone who passed on him made a mistake. And when that happens, when he's out there leading an NFL team to victories, all those draft experts who questioned his preparation are going to look pretty foolish. The beautiful thing about sports is that eventually, the truth comes out on the field. All the talk, all the criticism, all the doubt, it all gets settled between the lines. And if history has taught us anything about the Sanders family, it's that they've always found a way to prove their doubters wrong. Deion Sanders didn't just defend his son in that podcast appearance. He laid down a marker. He reminded everyone that the Sanders family doesn't just talk, they back it up. They've been doing it for decades, and they're not about to stop now. So here's my question for you. Do you think Shedeur Sanders is going to use this 5th-round selection as motivation to prove everyone wrong? Do you believe that the criticism of his draft preparation was justified? Or was it just another example of people trying to tear down someone who's already proven themselves? And most importantly, do you think NFL teams are going to regret passing on a quarterback who has the Sanders DNA, the proven track record, and now the chip on his shoulder that could make him absolutely dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe because we're going to be following this story closely. When Shedeur Sanders starts making noise in Cleveland, you're going to want to be here to see how this whole thing plays out. Trust me, this is just the beginning of what's going to be an incredible story. The Sanders legacy isn't done yet. It's just getting started in the NFL.